Hello and welcome to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Athin Cassiotis. I'm a business growth expert who helps business owners grow and scale to create wealth and freedom. Today, I have an awesome guest. Her name is Dianna Hooker, and Dianna is designated as one of the top 50 over 50 women making impact in Cincinnati. Accountant and leadership expert, Dianna L. Hooker is a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and business coach. With a background in accounting and leadership, her career expands over several areas, including direct sales, business startups, franchises, and finance. And Dianna Hooker worked her way up from entry-level positions in corporate America to CEO of her own thriving companies, DLH Financial, and Living Your Greatness Coaching. And Dianna is passionate about helping her clients discover, hone, and utilize their talents to succeed no matter what challenges they encounter. Welcome, Dianna Hooker, and thank you for being on my show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, awesome. I'm sure it's going to be a great show for everyone watching and listening today. So you're a successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, just please introduce yourself by telling us a bit more about you and your journey.
All right. Well, as you said in my bio, that I started off entry level and I was totally in corporate America. But it's kind of a fun story because I'm a storyteller, is that I grew up in a very small coal mining town. And I knew that I wanted to do something much bigger. And so I got out of that small town and I knew that I was going to have my own business someday. I had no idea what it was going to be, but I knew that I was going to be able to help others. And I actually fell in love with accounting, which people are like, accounting, really? Like numbers, like that's fun. But I did. I absolutely loved it. And just through the experience of everyone that I met, it journeyed into working for, startup companies, working for franchise, working in corporate America. But then when I started growing my family, I wanted to have more control over my schedule. So that's when I actually went out and started my own business. And I took all the tools that I had learned from all the businesses that I had worked for and with, and, grew it into the DLH Financial. And then several years ago, I actually had a dream about writing a book. And that put me on the journey to actually becoming the coach and using the 30 years of experience that I had in accounting and tax preparation.
Yeah, amazing. I love the story, the back end of that. And then, from the book and everything, how it's transpired to where you are today. And I know, you are a storyteller, right? And I know this is a really powerful subject that probably a lot of people don't realize. And I'd love to delve deep on this with you today. So why are stories so important?
Well, I think the reason that stories are so important is because if I tell you, this is what you need to do, most of the time, I'm going to be telling you something that you already know. It's not something that's new. And I already know that. But if you're not using it, you only know it, because the difference between knowledge and wisdom is action. So with using a story, you can see how putting it into action makes a difference. And I have a great example of a perfect story if you would like to hear it.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get plenty of stories in here when we're talking
Let's
about
get plenty of
storytelling.
stories, and I'm all about it. So, so let's just say I said, you know what? You don't need to worry about failing. You don't need to worry about what other people think. You just need to do what you need to do to be great. You'd be like, I know that, right? Did I tell you anything you didn't know?
Yeah.
No, right? So I'm going to tell you a story about my son. I actually have two sons. They're adults now, but when my youngest was 9 years old, he decided that he wanted a unicycle for Christmas because he wanted to learn how to ride it and perform in the spring talent show at his elementary school. And I was so excited that he wanted to do this because he had severe anxiety. So I'm like, oh, wait a minute. He's going to get in front of a large group of people and ride a unicycle by himself on stage. This is like conquering anxiety, right? So I'm like, absolutely, I will buy that unicycle for you. So I got it for him for Christmas. He learned how to ride it, and he was ready for the spring talent show. He auditioned, got a space, and the night of the performance, he goes, I don't want to go. I'm like, you're ready for this. What do you mean you don't want to go? He goes, what if I fall? I'm like, well, have you fallen before? Yes. What'd you do? I got back up. Well, can you get back up on stage? Yeah, I can. But what if people laugh at me? I'm like, you know what? I can't guarantee that people won't laugh. But what I have discovered is if you get back up and you try again, that people will cheer louder for you than if you would have done it perfectly the first time. And he said, okay, I'll try. So they announced Dawson Hooker, unicyclist, and he enters stage right and he falls immediately. The crowd hushes. He picks up his unicycle and he walks off stage. They have no idea what's going to happen. A few seconds later, he comes across and goes all the way across the stage. And the crowd goes wild. I mean, they are screaming and they are cheering. He goes back and forth across the stage the entire time. He falls many times. He gets back up, and somehow they cheer louder for him every single time. So he starts doing donuts, figure eights, going back and forth. I mean, he's like doing all these tricks. So then he finishes his act. He smiles, takes a bow. He walks off stage. And I'm like, that was amazing. I didn't know that you could do all of those tricks. And he goes, neither did I. When you stop worrying about failing, when you stop worrying about what everybody else thinks, then you leave the opportunity for you to discover your greatness.
Yeah. Love that. What a powerful story. And yeah, it lands, right? A lot more than if you just said that last part.
Right. Exactly. Because you can see how it can be applied. And that can be applied in business. It can be applied in personal life. It can be applied in every arena that we exist in, right? Because the story is going to take you there. And I mean, I am, writing a book. It'll be coming out later this year. Unhook yourself, releasing yourself from the stories that hold you back from greatness. Because either they can empower you or they can keep you back because of fear. And it's all about releasing those stories that do not serve us anymore, or maybe reframing them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm big on mindset as well. And maybe let's delve into this because I know that, 95% of the thoughts we have today are the same thoughts we had yesterday. And we're on a bit of a repeat, right? In terms of what
Yes.
we do. And if we keep telling ourselves something, we believe it, whether it's good for us or not. So do you want to delve a little bit more just quickly into that part about, the releasing so we can, move forward into what we want to achieve?
Yeah, no. So, because as you mentioned as well, I'm a business coach, and I have like my 3 stepping stones that I use, and I've already mentioned a couple of them, but the first one is awareness. The next one is knowledge, and then wisdom. But the first is awareness. If we are aware of a story that we are actually telling ourselves, then we have the ability to actually reframe or change that story. And I also am a neuroencoding specialist. So I help my clients actually go back. We figure out that story because you're right. It's a story that we've been repeating for a long time. It's something that got embedded when we were usually 4, 5, 6 years old. And it's in our subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind does not know the difference between fact or fiction. And so it has this story that it has told itself, and then it looks for evidence that it's true.
Yeah.
So, oh, this person doesn't like me. Oh, then you find that they talk to you rude and they're really not talking to you rude. Maybe they're having a bad day, but it's like something like people don't like me. And so when you're able to go back identify that, and you don't necessarily reframe the story as much as the emotion that's attached to it, because what we think influences how we feel, or the emotion, which then affects how we act, which then affects what results that we get. So reframing that, and if you reframe it with gratitude, that's how you actually release it, is go back and find, because you know what the results were because of what happened, right? Or what created that story. But if you can find out what am I grateful for during that time, or what happened from it. And again, I have another story.
I love it. Yeah, please share. Always good to hear the stories. We'll weave it into everything we do today.
So, when my parents divorced, actually, when I was very young, and when I was 6 years old, my brother moved away, and my 6-year-old mind, I mean, I was still with my mom, he was with my dad. But in my mind, I was like, why wasn't I chosen? My subconscious mind, not my conscious mind, my subconscious mind. Why wasn't I chosen? Right? And so then to me, in the subconscious mind, it created the not worthy, not good enough, not lovable. So that could be very traumatic, right? Go back and re-encode it. I had my mom and I had my grandmother, and they, to me, were like the most strong, most empowering women that I knew. And that's who influenced me. And look, I became an entrepreneur. I started my own business. I'm able to make the impact. That's a lot of gratitude. I am worthy. I am good enough. I am lovable. And I am really simplifying it, but that's how you go back and re-encode. But you can see how that could have been formed, and then how it can change because you look at it from a different angle, a different perspective, and look at it gratitude. It was actually a good thing. Had my brother been there, maybe the influence would have been different for me, right? We would have been maybe competing, or I would have had a different encoding that would have happened at that time. But I had the best experience possible because I had two people who said, if I said I was going to do something, they said, absolutely, she will, even if it was something that was beyond anything that they could comprehend for themselves.
Yeah, awesome. Love it. Great story as well, to do that. Let's talk more about the story side of things, because I think this is really important. And how we tell the story, what's part of that, I think is important too, because you could just say a story very simply and it won't land, right? So what are some key elements or something like that make a story, I guess, impactful and memorable?
Absolutely. So when I write or when I tell a story, I always try to put the person in the room, even if it's not a room that they've ever imagined themselves in or have been in. And one of the key components for that is emotion, is to tap into, like, what is the emotional part of that? When I was telling the story about my son, I was talking about anxiety. People have felt anxiety in some area of their life at some point in time, right? About apprehension of getting up on there, then the excitement of everyone cheering. You could feel the joy, and then even like the surprise of, I didn't know I could do that either. Because when you pull in the emotion, it makes the bigger impact.
Yeah, cool. Love it. Very, very cool. Very important there, with the emotion, make people feel it. Yeah, in terms of what you're doing and making that connection. So let's talk about, we've got an authenticity part of us, right? That we want to be showing here, about what we do. I think, from a business sense now, maybe there's a positioning element as well to the story that we want to be doing, because, how, especially if we're wanting to influence people, right, in a good way to take action or whatever it is, right, as part of this story that we tell, how we position the story is, I think, important, because sometimes some of the elements may detract, right, from the story. So I'd love to hear, from your perspective of that sort of balance or difference there of, obviously it is authentic, but then how we position it to make sure that it has the impact that we want.
Well, always be authentic, right? And that always shows. if you have all the right words, but you don't believe it because you're being inauthentic, then it may land some of the time, but it will not land all of the time. And you might have some success, but not full success. But when you're being authentic and you truly believe what it is that you are communicating and putting that as a part of the story, then it will land. You could almost have the wrong words, but because you're sincere, you're being authentic, you're being truthful. And the other part of that is that keep in mind that it is for the best of all involved. It's to serve for the best of all involved, to have the good intentions, which goes back to being authentic and having that integrity for that, and being able to position that is so important. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome, love it. And no, we could have a variety of people in our audience, whether it's through obviously written content or like in a room that are listening to this. So the things that we should be thinking about to make sure that it resonates, right, with who we're telling this story to, so that they that they're moved by it as well.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a really good point. Obviously when you're speaking, we don't always know, like in this particular, environment, we don't know everyone who's going to tune in, right? Because you might have a set, but you could have outliers. But it's always important to know when you are speaking, who you're speaking to, and that you are speaking where they are, and then you take them where they can go. I just a couple of weeks ago, I did a presentation, and it was to the same audience that I had given like probably 10 presentations to. And it was probably the second best one that I had given to them this couple of weeks ago. And someone said, Dianna, what was the difference? And I said, the ones before, I was actually talking where I wanted them to be. And it wasn't landing because they could not see that yet. What the difference was is I started where they were, and I took them on the journey to get them where they needed to be.
Yeah, I love that. Very, very powerful, where they were already now and then where they wanted to be. I love that part there. Let's talk about vulnerability now. I think this is an interesting one, and not being biased, like I guess me from a male perspective, right? Especially in Australia as well, with the way it is, it's a bit like, just get on with it. Don't show too much emotion if you're feeling down and things like that. Whereas, some of the women are a little bit more, allowed to, show emotion, I guess, growing up. And can be a bit more vulnerable
Sure.
than what men. This is generalizing, but from what I see of how our culture is here, and can be similar in other cultures. So what role does it play, and can it, I guess, be positive and negative in terms of having vulnerability in storytelling as well?
Absolutely. So here's the thing. I just learned this the other day, and I thought that it was fantastic, because there is that more of the male and female, and it's not to stereotype or anything like that, but it's almost scientific, or it is not almost, but it is scientific. I actually learned this from someone the other day, that when a male baby is born, because there's a left and the right of the brain, right? So it's almost like two halves. And when a male baby is born, there's like a film that's over that crease, and there's like a backwash that happens, and it removes that film. And I'm not using scientific terms here, by the way, I'm just repeating what I heard. But that so it helps males compartmentalize more, be able to focus on war more, or those type of things, like that protection. It's like ingrained to be the provider, the protector. And again, I'm not stereotyping or anything like that, scientists. But with the female baby, it does not remove the film. It does not backwash that. And so that is why women can multitask more often than men can. They are more emotional. They're more connected in that way, because those two parts of the brain are actually connected, versus being separate. So yes, there is that. And I think that's, true. Like you said, in different cultures, it's not just a region or anything like that. And we are taught, or I feel that males are taught, just get on with it, don't show emotion, be strong, So, but it is still important to be vulnerable. And anytime, male or female, you have to do it in a safe space. And so when you know your audience, you feel that it's safe and it's something that can benefit someone, then you can go in deeper and be vulnerable and still protect yourself within the story, right? How much you share, how deep that you go into it. But if your purpose is to make a positive impact in the world in whatever it is that you're doing, vulnerability is a part of authentic, but it does not mean that it's weakness.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, it's like something like showing an opinion or showing a different way to look at something. And you can find a common ground, with someone. Because how often is it if somebody's being very stoic, you don't even feel like you can connect with them a lot of times because they have a wall. But if you can open up just a little bit and show a little bit of vulnerability, then it builds that connection. And it doesn't mean that you have to share every dark, secret thought, emotion, but just open it up a little bit. And I believe that's true in every arena.
Yeah, I love that. Really, really powerful. And yeah, sharing that area there. And I like that you said, how deep you go and you got to be in a safe space because, just for meeting someone for the first time, you might not want to be ridiculously vulnerable because they might make some judgments, right? You want to be in a place where you've got some trust and you're safe. And then, you don't necessarily want to be crying for half an hour either or something like that. In this time period, it's probably a little bit too much vulnerability of going through some past stuff, but it could be. I heard a story of someone, at an event where something that really happened to a friend that was bad and they passed away, right? And it showed a little bit of vulnerability there, but then that impacted like their mission, and things like that. So something like that was a way that the vulnerability for a short period of time, impacts them and was able to be brought into the story of what they do. I think that was a good example.
Well, right. Well, even if we think about the story of my son, right? He was afraid that people would laugh. That's him being vulnerable, fear. It's an emotion. And then when people applauded because he got back up. So we don't have to be strong and stoic and perfect all the moments. We can show vulnerability and say, you know what, I am not perfect, but this is what I learned from not being perfect. Again, I have another story.
Love it.
All right. So I was in Las Vegas, Nevada at a personal growth workshop, and we went to a ropes course as a part of our personal growth journey. And whatever you think that was going to be, that it was totally more powerful than anything. And so one of the things that I had been dreading all day long was I had to go across these V ropes. So like they're the individual ropes and you had to step from one rope to the other 2 stories up. And I'm like, oh, I was looking at it all day. I'm like, I don't even know if I can pull myself up on that platform and how am I going to get there? And so I make it up to the platform because we had to climb up this cargo net. And I asked the guy that's up there and I said, so I've noticed people have had their hands on the guide that our safety harnesses were hooked into. Is that the way you're supposed to do it? And he goes, yeah, you can do it that way. But if you really want to challenge yourself, keep your hands on the rope. And I'm like, well, I came here to play full out. I will put my hands on the rope. Tell me how to do it. So he explains how to do it, and I start out, first step off was pretty intimidating. And I'm doing really well. Like I'm doing it perfectly. And then one of my feet slip off the rope. And I am in a one-legged squat on a rope 2 stories in the air. And the coach on the platform that I was going to goes, Dianna, what are you thinking? I said, I'm thinking I'm tired. And he goes, are you giving up? And I'm like, no, I'm not giving up. But literally, I was trying to pull myself up. I couldn't. My foot is dangling down. I'm like, I don't know if I can do a one-legged squat on the ground, much less on a rope 2 stories in the air. And he's like, well, why don't you put your little, your foot on this little rope in between? And I did. And I stood up, got 2 ropes away. Both of my feet slid off. And I ended up sitting on the little rope in between. I still ended up getting back up. And the thing of it is that had I done that perfectly, it would have felt good. But what I learned from going across those V ropes and falling twice and still being able to get back up and finish the course is that even if I don't do it perfectly, even if I do it scared, even if I do it afraid, I can still do it.
Yeah, very, very powerful. I love that. And what a lesson out of it. And I guess you're really good at keeping people engaged, right? In terms of your stories, like they're great, all of them. Sometimes some people, maybe they're telling a story and people get disengaged, or everything like that. So, what are some tips, I guess, that you can give people that will help keep the audience engaged, people there that will be sort of hanging on the end of the word and listen to the story so they get the outcome and the meaning that you want to give to that.
Sure. So obviously knowing your audience is very important. And there are going to be still say maybe some people that are bored, but I find that you don't need to know all of the details. I remember somebody telling me a story and he was going back and forth between a conversation with his mom. And I'm like, okay, I know that you did not want to go into the store, but your mom was making you did not have to tell that argument back and forth 10 times, right? Not all details are important. Stay with what is the most important part of the story, especially to get the point across, and evoke emotion. So figure out like what the emotional is. And if you make people laugh, in some part of the story, it usually will increases their likelihood to continue listening because they're waiting for that next line. And for some reason it gets funnier. If you get them to laugh once, they will continue to laugh thinking it's funnier. Um, and pause. You don't need to tell the story all in one breath. Dramatic pauses do make a difference as well.
Yeah, definitely. With that dramatic pause just before the end there, that line. So
Thank you.
love it. And so that people are aware, like what context, because obviously we're talking from a business sense now as well, but even just generally, like what context can we use storytelling in so that, we can, make that impact that we want?
So I use it in every environment that I am in. It's the way that I engage with people, but it's not always my story. Sometimes it's even me asking them, what's your story? Usually when I start a meeting with anyone, I will say, tell me something great. And one, it actually tells a lot about people. I'm surprised often how many people will say, I don't know anything great, which then that will delve into some vulnerability, some, authentic conversation. And whenever they share something with me, I then will go, this is what I heard. And I can repeat the story back to them, maybe a little bit different, but with the lesson in it. And it's, you see their eyes actually dilate and go up because it's like, oh, this person sees me. This person hears me. They understand. So in what context that you use it, again, I use it in all arenas, in business, in personal, it just works. So, I mean, and it's not like I go in with the intention like, okay, what story am I going to tell today, or anything like that. It evolves. I mean, obviously, if I'm doing a presentation, I have something in mind, but there have been times where I've totally changed what I talk about because I get the feel from the people that I'm engaging with that, you know what, this is not the time for that particular story.
Yeah, awesome. It's like trusting that gut feeling or whatever it is about what comes out at that time as well.
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing is when we know our stuff, we we know our stuff. So it doesn't necessarily have to be all premeditated anyway. And if you're being authentic and you know your stuff, it will flow and fall into the places that it needs to fall into. And
Definitely.
that builds in because you know the know, like, and trust, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I love it. Especially like, if you're presenting or whether you're speaking and you're getting some questions or something like that, from people, which is obviously could be random. And then that could probably invoke a story, right? Because they might make you remember something and go, hey, there's a good thing a point that I can get across to make this land as well.
oh, absolutely. And you know, what happens a lot of times is, well, especially if you're like speaking in a large group, is that we don't like silence, but silence is very important because it's not like you have to rush to answer the question really quick. Let me actually think about what you just said or what you just asked, and let me answer the best way that I know, you know, and to have that silence because it calms everybody.
Yeah. Awesome. Love that. Really, really powerful. Let's talk a bit more about coaching and mentoring now, right? Because I know you're a coach as well, like myself. And, I guess the impact on what it's done in business, in life with you and what it's helped you achieve, I guess the importance around that as well.
So, you know, I had said that I don't know if I said this in the beginning, but in 2016, I had a dream about writing a book. I had not thought about writing a book prior to that, but I had a dream. Literally, I had a dream. And so I'm like, this is divine intervention. I'm supposed to write this book. And I literally woke up from the dream and I wrote down everything that I could remember from it, which is actually the outline of my book to this day. And I just said, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. And people started telling me stories because my book is a self-help book written in memoir format. It's my coaching program. I take people through awareness, knowledge, and wisdom through storytelling and putting people in the perspective of, I could see myself here. I understand this perspective of the story. That moved into coaching because, again, like I said, I would start conversations with, tell me something great. And I'm always amazed on how many people don't have something great. And then they'll turn around on me like, well, you tell me something great. I'm like, oh, I've always got great stuff. And here's the thing, sometimes it's not because everything is perfect and wonderful, but because I know whatever lesson I'm getting, whatever character building moment that I'm getting in adversity, that it's going to serve me for the next problem, the next obstacle that I come across. And so that's when I'm like, okay, now I need to like utilize all of my experience for 30 years in business and tax, all of my storytelling, and put this into coaching to help other people achieve what it is that they want to do. And I primarily work with, you know, entrepreneurs and small business owners so that they can actually scale their business, actually live their dreams, actually do what it is that they want to do. The other day when I was doing the presentation, I was actually talking about a plan, you know, PLAN, plan. And someone asked me, they're like, so Dianna, let's say somebody has this plan and it's a perfect plan. Why doesn't it work? And I said, the reason that it doesn't work is because they don't believe that they can truly do it, or they don't believe in the plan. And they were like, oh, limiting beliefs. And I'm like, limiting beliefs. So turning that in and helping them. And I customize my program per the person. I mean, of course, I have a set, thing that I do, but I customize it to make it work for them because we are individuals. We have individual expressions that work, different dreams, even though it might be similar to someone else. But what makes each person's business unique, each person, is them. So we really nurture the person that they are so that they can shine and make the impact that they were designed to make.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. Completely agree on, the tailoring side and how powerful that external person, right, the coach, can help with people and get them over the line. And so much value. I love the storytelling element and the mindset stuff that, we've talked about today. And it's so powerful to help us, move forward and create that impact that we want. And I guess as we're wrapping up here, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
So one of my favorite quotes is actually, it's a Buddha quote, but it says, everything that we perceive as negative in our lives is actually putting us on a path to greatness. So the piece of advice that I give is that every time you have that obstacle, you have that adversity, actually celebrate it and look for that lesson, look for that character building moment, because it is actually empowering you to be the greatness that you were designed to be. Because I truly believe that we are all designed for greatness. It's our choice to make the right actions to make it happen.
Yeah, love that quote. So powerful. And we connected to our networks where I learned about your amazing journey, and I love that, you're incorporating, all this storytelling that you do. And you're amazing woman. And, I'm sure you'll continue to help, your clients to discover, hone, and utilize their talents to succeed, no matter what challenges, they encounter. And I love the 3-step system, that you're going through as well there. And very grateful that we connected and look forward to continually connecting from there. So how can people find you, get in contact with you, Dianna?
So the best way to get in touch with me is through my website, I don't know why I was going to do that, livingyourgreatness.net. It has all kinds of ways. It gives a lot of information because I, have been a part, which you had mentioned, a part of several book collaborations, and my own book is coming out. I have different workshops and things like that people can engage in. So that's the best way, livingyourgreatness.net. Also, I'm on LinkedIn at Dianna Hooker. So I think those are the best ways to get in touch with me.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I would love to connect. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. And definitely everyone jump onto Dianna there, check out her website, and on LinkedIn as well, on socials. Always a great way to keep updated and see what else, to delve further into it. So check it all out. It's been a pleasure interviewing you as well. And thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Oh, I loved being here. It was really great spending time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way you know is if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.